Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fires of Heaven live show. Since this is book 5, Lezlie and I decided that we're just going to skip the spoiler-free chat. But do be prepared if you haven't read this far yet. I would suggest not. We say thank you for joining us, but come back and watch this after you have read book 5 because we will talk full on spoilers. And we don't want anyone to be spoiled that doesn't want to be. So if you haven't read this far in the series, this is your warning. Usually it's a couple minutes into the show, but we figured we only have a couple minutes of spoiler-free chat anyway, since we're on book 5. So we're just going to skip the spoiler-free chat and go straight into spoilers.
But if you're tuning in because you're seeing if it's worth reading this far, yes, this is, especially if you're a character-driven reader, in my opinion, this is the book where the characters really start getting some great development. Just gets, I love, characters are my thing, but the first 4 books is just getting everything set up. We kind of get our theme, our plot, the world building, the magic system, and all of that fun stuff. But my goodness, the character work in this one was just on point, in my humble opinion.
No, I agree. It's definitely a character-driven book.
Yeah, certain characters really get things going in this book.
And some get forgotten completely.
Well, it happens.
Oh,
So,
nice.
Where do we want to start?
Was there any favorite moments for you in this one, Kate?
Gosh.
Or things that really struck you as, oh my gosh.
Oh, there were several moments where I literally said out loud, "What? Oh my god." Like when, Matt came in and announced that Morghese was dead. Like, I kind of, I was shocked, but at the same time, I was like, last we saw her, she was on the run, so she could possibly still be alive, which, later in the book at the very end, we find out that she is still alive. The bigger shocker to me was the battle between Moraine and Lanfear. I read that first, and first I thought, she had, disappeared into their dream world or something with Lanfear.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because now we're at book 5, and I've gotten to know Robert Jordan's writing, I knew since he kept going on about Moraine being gone, that she was gone. If it was just, she had disappeared, they would have moved on to another topic.
Well, and then the whole Land's bond was broken, and he all of a sudden he's like, I'm now, my bond has been passed to another, and he's like, I have to go to her.
Right. He's like, I can't feel her anymore. She did this. She told me about this. No one else knew about it.
I wish I have never blinked an eye at that. Never. Moraine is not a character I ever really cared too much about. I don't think Robert Jordan really wrote her.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be a likable character. I mean, she had a job to do. She was there to do it at the expense of her own cost. Like, she had to humble herself and swear an oath to Rand just to stay with him. But in the end, you have to think about that and go, well, who was that benefiting? You can look at it from the Two Rivers folks' perspective. She was just bound and determined to have him on her, a puppet on her strings until the day she died. She was going to use him for the tower. And she flat out told him, this was how it was. So I never really cared. I just kind of always saw it as, okay, Land is going to be free, but now his bond's been moved to another. And I'm like, oh Man.
Oh my gosh. And then what he tells Rand to tell Nynaeve,
Yeah.
that was just...
Yeah, well, that part I don't really put much stock in. One thing Robert Jordan cannot do is write relationships. So, although, well, never mind. That's a continued at a later book.
I mean, we don't get too many relationships at this point in the book.
Oh, yeah, we do. We've gotten a lot, too many. They're not done well. Maybe is why you're not noticing. But, like, he writes friendships well. I love the loyalty and the friendships between Nynaeve, Egwene, even Elaine, the Two Rivers boys, even though it's a little strained in this one, but they're all becoming adults. They're all maturing. They're all learning their paths and walking those paths. And, you know, Rand, I think, feels trapped, and he's like, okay, I'm the Dragon Reborn. I have to fulfill this prophecy. I think he is doing his best to do it his way. Sadly, he doesn't feel like he can really trust anybody to tell about these plans that he's trying to do. But I think the boys' relationship is a little strained.
Yeah.
I think the girls are stronger than ever. But as far as like relationships, like love relationships, it's awful. I almost wish Robert Jordan had just quit that. I'm so sick of all of the wishy-washy of just Rand and the three girls and just his thought process. And I thought it was kind of funny though when him and Avienda finally, she takes control. Otherwise, it would have never happened if it was left up to him. And then he's like immediately wanting to marry her.
Right.
And she's just like, oh, Rand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the friendships. I do not like the romantic.
We see how well the romantic relationships worked out for Moraine, where Rand is concerned, because Lanfear trying to kill him.
I mean,
she ends up having to fight.
If he had just done what he should have done, I mean, he's killing male Forsaken, no problem, but her, I mean, she won't even call him by his name. She calls him Lews Theron, and he hates that because he's constantly just mentally exhausted from having to battle that man's memories in his own mind.
Yeah.
Which it was also kind of funny because, you know, as Rand is fighting these inner memories and turmoil and trying to be like, okay, this is my memory, this is his memory, and then he's not very present in the world always, what's happening around him. And Matt was trying to get his attention, and Matt was like, Lews Theron, and Rand was like, huh? So, but Matt's got his own problems, which were interesting. I never liked Matt until the Shadow Rising Matt. Now I love Matt.
Right. I wanted more of Matt.
Yeah,
I am just dying. I am right there with him. Like every time he meets a woman, he's like, does the daughter of the 9 moons mean anything to you?
Right. Does this mean anything to you?
Who do you think that person, do you have any predictions of what kind of person, what kind of woman you think that might be, Kate?
I think it's a person that we would least expect it to be.
So you think we've met her?
I go back and forth on it. I think we could have met her already, but also still to come. I think if we have met her already, it's not one of the major characters. It's a character that maybe we've met in passing and we'll circle back to in a later book. But that's why I don't make predictions.
Did you so we got to know a little bit and see a little bit of the strategery of the Forsaken.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting to find that while they are allied under the Dark One, they are forming alliances with each other, spying on each other, and
Yeah.
a lot of them have their own personal agenda. And of course,
Right.
now we know that there's this whole honor of being named Bliss. And of course, they're all angling to have that honor,
Yeah.
and that
And
they
no one
can,
trusts the others.
and that they can actually die like forever.
Right. It felt like up until then, if a Forsaken quote died, they were kind of just regenerated as a different person.
Yeah, they were immortal. It's kind of like
Right.
Brigitte and Gatel Kane. They're in Telon the dream world.
Yeah.
Until they're reborn, they're woven back into the pattern, which I absolutely love Brigitte. I love how Mohidian put her back grown into the world, and she's just I love the whole circus thing with Nynaeve and Elaine, Tom, and Julian. And Brigitte's like she's shooting the arrows, and Tom was throwing the knives at Nynaeve, and she's just like going, "Oh my gosh!" I had the best time with those characters.
Oh my gosh! And then the circus ringleader wanted to marry Nynaeve. She's like, "What?"
That was
a good comedic interlude in what would be a really serious book if it didn't have those chapters in it.
I kind of feel like it was some really good character growth for Nynaeve. I think she learned a lot of humility, and it's hard to explain. While it was a slow moving part, I think there was a lot of importance there. I never minded any time spent with the menagerie. I got a kick out of it. I thought it was important that it worked great for them to be learning and searching for the Black Aja, and of course Nynaeve is on her quest about Moghedien, and then getting to visit with Egwene and the Wise Ones.
Yeah.
And then Egwene is like sneaking into the dream world, and then she's like getting all over Nynaeve. Like
that was funny.
She's really Egwene has really matured.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
think the most out of all of them.
Yeah, I think that's why I started really getting into the characters with this one, is because we're getting away from the angsty junk, and we're getting into just the grit. We're seeing what kind of people these individuals are going to be, and they're all developed individually really well.
Yeah.
They're taking on just roles of maturity, responsibility, leadership, and I really get into. I like the whole, like, there's not a whole lot of big moments in the Fires of Heaven, but there's a lot of what I call it strategery, and just a lot of setup.
Yeah.
And you're learning some motivations and what's driving some of these people.
Right.
There's so much to do with politics. There's so many moving parts, and just everybody navigating all of these different parts. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I loved seeing like the different groups come together throughout the book that, make up the different circles of this legend. And, everyone is important in this legend to take down the Dark One. And so to see like the Aes Sedai come together with Swanson on the run, and just like you're starting to see the
that was another funny
pieces
part.
like start to fit together now. Like the
Well-
past couple books, we saw them separately, and now they're starting to finally, come together.
That's another one who got taken down a peg or two. I got so tickled when Sawan and Liana and Min are trying to get to Saladera, and she's getting to hear what people really thought of her as the Amaryllin seats. And she's just having to take it, listen to these people describe her, and I was getting so tickled. Her whole thing with Gareth Brand, oh my gosh. I laughed so much. I got so tickled at those two.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite parts. But yeah, I like that she hasn't given up. And she's got all this information. I mean, her and Moraine have been working together for years prior, looking for the Dragon Reborn and just keeping their eyes on the heartbeat of what's going on in that regard and the prophecy and all of that fun stuff.
Mhm.
She's got a lot of information at her disposal, and she's determined that she's going to see the good part of the White Tower survive and make sure that they back ran. But that was interesting.
And I loved the whole, maybe because I love the character as a whole, but the whole Queen Morghese storyline that goes through there. She's like, if I don't have support here, I'll go find my own damn support.
Yeah,
she's like, I know I got them out there. I'll go find them. If they can't come to me, I'll go find them myself.
She's a tough one to begin with because, first of all, she broke the compulsion, and that's not easy to do. You have to be really strong-willed to do that. And then I like the relationship between her and Lenny, the nurse.
Oh, Lenny. It was so nice to meet her after hearing all of her sayings that Elaine parroted a lot. I got tickled. But so there were two interesting warders that got bonded in this one.
Yeah.
So Elaine bonded Brigitta,
right,
and Alana bonded Rand.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
I was more interested in the Elaine bonding Brigitta because that was not only unexpected, but also, something they're like, I don't even remember a time when a female could bond with another female.
Well, they just typically don't. They
right, but like even in that world, it was unusual.
Well, Elaine's not Aes Sedai, so she could face some dire consequences if it gets found out.
I mean, yeah. I think also, like, Rand is not my favorite character at all, so...
Oh, I can't stand Rand.
Whenever Rand is on the page, I think my brain kind of half tunes out. Like, I pay attention and I see what's happening, but I have less reaction.
Some Aes Sedai, we don't know if we can trust, bonds the Dragon Reborn, the most dangerous man walking around in the world. Kate, I mean, I don't like him either, but I had totally forgotten that tidbit. And when it happened, and I certainly forgot Varen was involved and linking with her, and I was just going, because remember, Alana Perrin did not trust her when she was in the Two Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like something about her is just not quite, I just don't fully trust her.
Yeah.
And I had completely forgot until that happened, and I was like, I thought my eyes were gonna pop out of my head. I was
forgot
so
that
shocked.
it happened in this book. I mean, I remember that he got bonded. I just didn't remember who it was and when it happened. So. Yeah, because Elaine has always had it in her head that she was going to bond Rand. she was going to choose green so that she could bond Rand.
Right.
And now he's bonded to this other woman. One of my favorite things, and I'll tell y'all a funny story about it, is Matt and the Band of the Red Hand.
Yes.
So way back in the late 90s, when I was reading these books, at this point I was reading the books as they were coming out. And when did this one, hold on, let me look it up. The exact date that it published.
1993. October.
Okay, yeah. So that I was still in high school. But back then, we didn't have Discord and all of that fun stuff. We had online forums, which they're archaic now. Nobody uses them because they're such a pain in the tail. And you could declare for, I think, 3 different factions. So I was of the Green Aja, and I was an Aiel, and I was also in the Band of the Red Hand. And we would like do all these actions where we would all like go and invade the forums of the Dark One or one of the Forsaken, because like everybody had their factions, and we would all go invade their forums, just be posting all of these random actions that we were doing and stuff, and we would steal from each other. But I absolutely love the Band of the Red Hand. We had our own little graphic and everything. I was such a nerd. That was when it was dragonmount.com. I don't know if they still have those up or not.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
I remember dragonmount.com.
I mean, I would, as soon as I would get home from school or work, I would get on those forums and I would just spend hours. But yeah.
I love how Matt was like, no, this is not what I want. I'm just trying to get out. I'm trying to get out of this, not like further in. And they're just like, you're a leader now. You killed him. You're a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And then he
that for me is kind of a running gag with Matt, because the harder he tries to get out, the more stuff happens to get him right in the center of things. Like nothing he does helps his cause. It just pulls him right back in.
Yeah, his luck. He can't turn it on and off, and I'm sure he wishes he could.
Yeah.
What did y'all think about Nynaeve getting that collar on Mogideon?
I was like, what? What does this mean for the real world?
Well, it was kind of similar to, they were learning from her,
right?
Like Brand was learning from Asmodean, until somebody killed him. Don't know who. That was interesting.
Yeah. That was kind of a fist pump for Nynaeve moment.
Yeah. She
kind of took her down a couple pegs. I think the bits that I liked most about this book where we learned more about the dream world, because that's one of my favorite parts of this series so far, is when we learn more and more about this dream world and what you can and can't do in it, and who can travel in it and how, and the whole partnership that Nynaeve had with Swan. And she's teaching her how to use this, and she's teaching her how to do this, and I think once I got to about halfway in the book, then I was sucked in.
Mm-hmm.
Once, things started linking up and happening, and the first half was more kind of a setup for the second half of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you really enjoy, especially if you really enjoyed The Shadow Rising in this one, I think it's a pretty sure bet you're going to enjoy the series as a whole.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of slow burning, but it's good stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could be taken out. You know,
Right.
Jordan and his repetition. It's, you know, there are things that I don't mind being reminded of, but then there are things that get on my nerves, and that's like the things that he wants to say over and over and
Yeah.
over. Like, we know men's readings about Rand.
Right.
We know she's seen him with being shared with 3 women. I don't freaking care about.
Yeah.
I don't care about any of that. I just don't. It's so bad. Like, the women think a certain thing about men. Men think a certain thing about women.
Right.
Rand has the same thoughts, and then he's like, "Ugh, it's like I just wish he would." I love the series,
Yeah.
but it has its faults, and I see them. So when people are like, "Yeah, that's not a series for me," I'm like, "Oh, I understand. I can see why."
Yeah.
But
I've
gotten to where I just skip those parts. Like, when it starts like, well, this person does this, but you know, this person doesn't, and this one, I'm like, let me just skip down.
Yeah. I feel like I don't mind when he reminds us of important points that we need to know in order to understand the plot and the characters. But when you repeat it 10 times in one book, it's almost like he doesn't trust his readers to remember important points that matter in the story.
Yeah. I mean, if he just did it like once or twice, because I get it, because there were years between the books back then. But then it's just like,
and the books are big, and there's a lot in there to remember.
Like,
but we don't need to be told 10 times one thing in the same book.
Well, I mean, we've been beaten over the head with, yes, we know that Egwene was once betrothed to Rand.
And it doesn't even matter in the story anymore. Like, the characters have moved on from it, so
yeah.
At least we didn't get in this book, like, Rand is better with girls. Now Matt's better with girls. Now Perrin's better with girls.
Yeah, we finally got away from that. So there is that. Now, if we could just, but I know we don't. As far as Rand and all of his, like that, that's just he just went overboard on that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we know he's uncomfortable around women. We know he's uncomfortable around the Maidens of the Spear. Like, how much of it do we really need in this book?
Right.
That's a lot of fluff.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really mind the whole maidens thing because I like how flustered they make him.
Yeah.
The romantic stuff, yeah, I could do a little less without that, but I do like the maiden's sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, I like the maidens in themselves, but we don't need to be reminded a gazillion times that Rand is uncomfortable around them. Like, we through the actions, we get that. We don't need to be told that. There are different ways to show that than to constantly being told Rand is uncomfortable in this situation.
What did you think about Min and Elaine when they like meet back up and Elaine's like, "So Min, are you in that reading? Or are you one of them?" She's like, "Yes." But I think if you're like a sister, and they're like, "We'll still be friends." And then when Elaine finds out Min's going to where Rand is,
right,
and she was like, "Well, that's when we were here, and he was there."
And they're like, "We can work together to figure out who the third one is."
I don't care, like, girl. I don't care what your reading is. If you say I'm sharing somebody with 2 other girls, I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna find somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
That's very Aiel of them sharing.
Yeah, they do operate a little differently, which is interesting. We do get to learn a lot about their culture in this one. Without Rand's help, he doesn't learn anything. Like Rand and Avienda in this one remind me of Jon Snow and the Wildling girl. I totally
God,
forgot
yes.
her name. You know nothing, Jon Snow. I mean, that's
Regret.
that's like constantly.
I just finished that book like 2 weeks ago. That's how I know.
Yeah. So every time they had an interaction where she had been teaching him something about Aiel and he forgot her and asked her a question of something she had been teaching him, she's like, how many times do I have to tell you this?
That's a great comparison.
And then every time I would read a part about Moraine when she's like trying to wrangle all the Two Rivers kids, I kept thinking of Steve from Stranger Things. Like he was like the babysitter of all the kids. Like these are the things that I picture in my mind when I'm reading these
That's
books
amazing.
now.
I pictured Moraine like trying to like corral a bunch of kittens. You know,
Yep.
Once you get them all in line, then one steps away.
Yep.
That's exactly what it's like. Exactly.
I got tickled.
Anything else that you guys wanted to talk about?
I'm looking at my notes.
Okay.
See if I missed anything. Oh. So Galad is a white cloak.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I wasn't really that shocked about it.
Well, you can see the danger though, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I kind of, when that was revealed, I'm like, I kind of sort of saw it coming. Not to the point where I would, say 100% I knew it was going to happen, but I was like, yeah, I mean, all the descriptions of him, we get the white cloaks from one perspective. If you see them from another perspective, you can see where he thinks, he fits right in with the white cloaks.
But what we, the reader, know about the white cloaks, because we're looking at the big picture and seeing what's happening, is working with it's not Patron, no, but they're taking orders from, just like the Forsaken and the Dark One. Like, it.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's huge dangers in it, but the act itself didn't surprise. Like you not blinking an eye when Moraine was killed was me not blinking an eye when Galad became a white cloak. I'm like, yep, it's about time.
Yeah, it's just, how they feel about Aes Sedai, and his sister is going to be one of the strongest one.
Yeah.
To come out of the tower if she makes it as a full sister.
Yeah. There's huge implications for it, but I was just like, yep.
The only thing that pops into my mind is things I can't say.
Yeah, there's a lot of that too.
And Podden Fane got the dagger back.
Mm.
But then he kind of disappeared after that happened, so.
Oh, old Podden Fane, he has a way of showing back up.
No, I know he'll come out. That's what interests me in his storyline is where he's going to show up again next and what he's going to do. Because you never know what he's up to, besides it not being good.
I mean, he is one of the most, all kidding aside, he is one of the most interesting and I find him more intriguing than the Dark One. We know what the Dark One's motivations are, but like people don't even actually know what Padden Fane is anymore because he's been serving for so long and he's so different from the man he once was.
Right.
And he's just been remade and remade and remade. And I don't know what his motivations are. I don't know what his agenda is. Who is he serving? Is he serving himself? Is he serving the Dark One? Is he serving something else? Like, he is such an enigma to everybody.
Right.
And and sometimes he resurfaces and we don't know who he is right away because he's a different name and he's just popped up somewhere else. And sometimes he
doesn't even
seems a
seem
little
to know
mad.
who he is himself. I think he's not quite sure exactly who he is and what he wants to do. I mean, obviously he knows where Rand is concerned and that thing, but he just the way his character is sometimes written, he just seems like conflicted with himself too.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just he's working it out as he goes along. He doesn't have like a real plan for anything. He's just...
Well, we know that he was drawn to the dagger, so he's got that now. And we know he has a connection to Rand. So it's that's just a character that fascinates me because
But also, wasn't there, and I could be remembering wrong, in a previous book, he had some kind of, it might have been a different character, but he had some kind of a need to track down Perrin too?
Well, a few books back, before they knew who the Dragon Reborn was, he was drawn. He was like tracking all three of them to try and figure out which one was the Dragon Reborn.
Okay.
So yeah.
I think what I'm thinking of was the other guy that he was with that was leading the White Cloaks.
Bornhold.
Yeah.
You know who I missed? I know we didn't get any of his character because we didn't get any of Perrin in this one, but I missed hearing anything about Loyal.
Same. Yeah. I had to go back and make sure I reread the end of the previous book to make sure okay, he's still alive. We didn't just lose him.
Yeah, he and Gaul went and closed the ways.
Right.
But it threw me off because Michael Kramer used Loyal's voice to voice a couple of the lords that Rand dealt with. And I was like, okay, that's Loyal's voice. I'm going to need you not to do that because you tricked me. I was like, wait a minute. When did Loyal come back?
Right, me too. I was like, wait, Loyal's back, but Perrin's not back? What?
I thought I missed something.
It threw me off too.
Hey, puppy. Who was your favorite Lord of the Rings? Who's your favorite Wheel of Time character?
Bandit says, the one that will give me treats.
He says Perrin because Perrin talks to wolves. And that he says he likes wolves. Also, TREATs.
Excellent choice.
Yep. I think those were all of my notes. My last one was Rand and Avienda. Lol.
It's about time.
Yeah. Poor Rand. I got so tickled because Kate had messaged me. She's like, Rand's a player. And I was like, she hadn't gotten to the part where he and Avienda have sex for the first time and then he's trying to marry her. And I'm like...
Well, for me, it was more he keeps saying he's supposed to be with Elaine.
But see, I think that's because...
But then there's this.
Well, because every time he sneezes, Avienda's like, I'm here to watch you for Elaine. That's just what... He's just constantly getting beat over the head with all of these people saying, you're for Elaine, you're for Elaine, you're for Elaine. So he just kind of started thinking it. Meanwhile, he's conflicted because she writes one letter that he's the love of her life, and the next one she tells him to go take a flying leap off the nearest dragon mount. So he's confused, rightfully so. And when you're just when the maidens are just constantly like, well, but then again, they were pretty funny when they found out about him and Avienda. So that's a mess. But yeah,
they have the interest in relationships anyway. They can pretty much do whatever they want with whoever they want, no consequences. It's just and it's the women who are in charge anyway. The women make all the choices. Like with Melanie, she went to Belle's first wife, and asked her if she wanted to be sister wives before they even told him that they were getting married. So
I mean, that's smart.
Which I like in that system that we have strong female characters.
Mm-hmm. So well, I mean, that's smart. If you can't get along with the other female, the one that's gonna shank you, you stay. You start there. Make sure y'all are gonna be cool with each other.
You can take care of the man. He's just a side bit.
Yep, it's always been fun to be reminded of how they operate.
Yeah.
Probably brings them closer together. But yeah, this is always one I have historically enjoyed because the character-driven reader in me really likes that we're starting to get into some deeper development.
Mm-hmm.
I like, one of the things I love most about people is just learning about what makes them who they are and why they are who they are. So we're seeing some of these things happen in this world that are shaping the individuals that they're becoming. And I'm such a big nerd when it comes to why people do the things that they do. And we get to see it happen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, even for the characters I don't like.
It wasn't my favorite book, but it also wasn't my least favorite. So the ending
for me,
brought
4 and 5 are probably 4 and 5 are two of my favorites, just because of some of the developments that happen and the things we learn about some of the characters. While they're not the best, well, I don't know. 4 is pretty high up there, but I'm not necessarily a character-driven reader. I do like a mix of character and plot, but the character development, especially with the girls and then Matt, and this one are some of my favorite parts to this book.
Yeah, my favorite parts that I'm liking at this stage in the game is seeing what the two factions of the White Tower, how they're handling things.
Yeah.
I love anything to do with the Band of the Red Hand and Matt at this point. Like, I'm a huge fan of Matt at this point. Like, Matt, Nynaeve, and Elaine and Brigitta together is some of my absolute favorite storylines. So it's gotten good.
I don't know if it's a just me thing or not, but I like Rand's slow descent into madness, where he starts getting Luce Theron's thoughts in his head, where he's not quite sure if it's his thoughts or Luce Theron's thoughts.
And it's something that, as the reader, it's hard to tell. Like, sometimes he'll just start laughing at something that he's thinking, and we get to see what he's thinking. So we know he's just laughing at something he's thinking about. It's, he's putting together this plan in his head, and he's like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. That'll show him. And he kind of, forgets himself and he laughs. Everybody else is like, is he about to do, like, are we about to die?
Right.
Like that constant danger of, and then you don't know if is it something that's just happening because of him being the strong Taviran that he is? Is it one of these bubbles from floating up from the Dark One's prison that's just getting weaker and weaker? The seals are cracking, breaking, and I love that it's kind of like a ticking time bomb, and you don't know what or where. There's just so many different things that factor in that you just constantly got to be like,
And then when he says something that he shouldn't know, but then he just has to say, well, I heard it somewhere or I read it somewhere.
And that too,
so
that's what's funny. If they would
so
just tell each other,
he's going crazy.
Yeah, if like they would just be able to help each other out with like some therapy. If they would just both say, "I've got a dead man's memories." Oh, dude, me too.
Yeah.
Because they kind of had a moment where they were like, kind of got that vibe off of each other.
Right.
So, and I was like, just tell each other.
Yeah.
Just do it, Matt. Just be like, yeah, I've got this dead general's thoughts in my head. No big deal, right? Oh man.
And you see lands off to one side. He just kind of eyeballs them because he knows that there's no way they can know the things that they know because they didn't just hear it somewhere and they didn't just read it somewhere. So it's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah. Matt's like, oh, I read it in a book. And he's like, yeah, I read it in a book as another person.
But Matt and Cawthon actually read.
And he's just, oh man, he's so funny. Like, he's the player for sure. Well, he's a wannabe player. He's like, I just want to, dance with some girls, maybe kiss them, and move on with my life. Oh, Matt. He'd probably be the one I would like tag along with. If I got plopped down in this world, he'd be the one I'd tag along with.
He'd be the most fun.
Mm-hmm. Hey, puppy.
Well, anything else?
Don't think so.
I've got a bunch of stuff going through my head, but I don't think I can phrase it in a way that wouldn't spoil some things to come. We're at a point now where it's really hard for me to say certain things because I'm like, ooh, am I gonna mess something up, or because things are starting to move now.
Yeah, that's why I make my little list of notes. And I'm like, don't say anything that's not on this sheet because this goes with this book. Because I'm already deep off into Lord of Chaos.
Right.
I had a little note on here with like things that can be said, but I mean, you got most of them, so I was just like nodding because I'm like, don't add anything, Stacy. Don't add anything because that's coming. That's coming.
Well, I'll say thank you all for joining us today. Joining us next month for Lord of Chaos. I'm looking forward to seeing where all of these stories go because it's one of those series that to me is not just one story. It's multiple stories going on at the same time. So
The Days of Our Lives fantasy version.
Yes, the fantasy version.
As the world turns.
I hope y'all have a great weekend, and we'll see y'all next month.
Bye.